All right, well, to discuss more, we're now being joined by Mithali Nikor, economist and founder of Nikor Associates. It's always a pleasure of having you on the show. She's joining us live from New Delhi. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, well, let's begin by asking the obvious that we've been asking all throughout. U.S. credit ratings have been downgraded by 3 primary agencies. What does it mean for the economy?
So I think this is a very interesting time in the global economy because at this point in time, this is the first time in maybe 2 or 3 decades that, what we knew as a golden truth in economics, that the US Treasury bonds are the safest possible assets in which you can save your income, your investment. That's no longer true. And that's sort of, going to lead to, I believe, a series of maybe not immediate, but short-term to medium-term changes in the American economy. The most important and visible one that we'll start to see is rising interest rates, because at the end of the day, as your risk profile increases, as your risk becomes higher, it becomes more and more important for banks and other lending organizations to offer you a higher return. And international investors who hold up to a third of the US debt will start demanding this higher return even before the domestic investors do. So I do think that there are some interesting times ahead for the US economy, and most of them will require the Federal Reserve to do some active management of interest rates.
Right. Now, that's talking about the problems. U.S. has implemented multiple measures to reduce deficit, including foreign and medical aid cuts. What more can the administration do to control the rising debt then?
So I think the first thing is that there is a need to understand what is the composition of US debt, because US debt has been sort of increasing at an exponential rate for the last 5 years, particularly. Today's $36 trillion debt, has, actually amassed mostly in the last 5 years, because in the last 5 years, the US has actually added nearly $11 trillion of debt. And a lot of this debt addition is not on account of the Medicaid or on account of the social security benefits, but they've actually been on account of regular government spending. So I think the appointment of an organization like DOGE, if it was actually done in a manner where you were checking where are the inefficiencies in government spending in a way to protect the most vulnerable citizens of your population, but at the same time ensuring that spending and inefficiencies are actually reduced in a sustainable way, could help the US economy a lot more. I mean, the concept is good, but at the end of the day, the implementation should not be targeting Medicaid and, basically spending that helps the poorest sections of the population, but rather looking at the block of inefficiencies when it comes to the running of government.
Right. Well, also, let me just ask you one last question before we let it go. Dollar weakness has been touted as a key risk by Moody's. According to you, how do you see dollar slide impacting investor sentiment?
So at this point in time, I don't actually expect this downgrade to lead to too much of dollar weakness. I mean, at the end of the day, the dollar is the reserve currency of trade in the world, and I don't expect that any other currency is going to come forward and replace the dollar in any kind of way. Also, as I mentioned, a lot of the US debt is held by international investors. China holds the second largest reserve of US debt. Japan holds the largest reserve of US debt. So in such a situation, it's also in the interest of these countries as they trade with the US to continue to maintain a stable dollar. So I think a lot of countries are going to come forward to maintain the stability of the dollar in global monetary markets. But if this trajectory continues and if we don't see meaningful efforts to actually cut the debt and actually put ceilings, for instance, it's very important that countries should think about in introspect how they can put ceilings on annual deficit accumulation. India, for example, stands out as an economy across the world where we have a legal limit on how much deficit the government can have in a particular year. You can't exceed 3.5% of GDP in your annual fiscal deficit. So, countries like the US need to now start thinking about these measures because it's impossible for them to go on borrowing endlessly on global financial markets without changes in their, status. So, therefore, I don't believe at this stage that the US dollar is going to be that badly impacted. I do believe that the Fed Reserve and the fiscal agencies will come up with a plan to start to reduce the debt. But in the absence of that, we do expect then changes in the dollar rates, and that will have implications on the global economy and especially Japan and China, who hold large reserves of US debt.
All right. Well, thank you so much. That was Mithai Nikor, economist and founder of Nikor Associates, joining us live from New Delhi. Always a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for joining and giving your insights.